All right, let's turn up the fire rate a little bit, moving into the machine guns of sorts. Starting with the submachine gun, which again, we're hopping back to 9mm parabellum rounds because this weapon uses it. An automatic handgun for special forces. All right, so coming over from Outbreak 1, model and icon look exactly the same, no difference there. And this is once again based on the Heckler und Koch MP5 A2. And again, besides Outbreak 1, the only other game we have seen a similar gun is in Resident Evil 0. Now, unlike Outbreak 1, it comes with its own magazine. You notice almost every weapon I've covered up to this point now has a specific magazine or speed loader of sorts for it. So they really thought this through. Submachine gun magazine. This sets 9mm rounds. Okay. So here's a list of all the locations for the submachine gun, and as you can see, it is exclusive to the Desperate Times and the End of the Road scenarios. Now, the 2 locations in Desperate Times are fixed across all difficulties, so I'll go ahead and show those. First one is in the parking garage ramp on the police station basement level. It is on the ramp near the north end of the passage. And in easy, normal, and hard mode, it comes fully loaded with 30 bullets, but in very hard, it only comes with 10. Now, just to note, the only way you can get in this area is if you first raise the shutter from the computer in the main hall of the police station. Now, this area is important for the next location for the submachine gun because this is in the holding cells when you talk to Ben. You have to give him the film D, which is on the parking garage ramp, in the same area as that first submachine gun. Once you give him it, the submachine gun will appear on the ground. And once again, easy, normal, and hard mode sport a fully loaded magazine with 30 rounds, while very hard mode, it only has 15 rounds. Now here's quite a satisfying extreme close-up of the submachine gun being wielded in-game by Hellmaster. Fact that we got it close enough to go across the entire screen. Just like the handguns with that one angle, I'm extremely satisfied we could get two-handed weapons in this angle. Now here's the submachine gun, once again being held by all the characters, and once again, any variant of the MP5 is instantly recognizable in most games. Alright, let's give it a test run here. I highly suggest getting the magazine when you can. It really cuts down the reload time. Alright, well, because this uses 9mm ammo, I, of course, am still gonna test this on some zombies. Alright, so 120 per bullet at close range, 96 per bullet at mid-range, 72 for far range per bullet. So I noticed while editing that this range is slightly buffed compared to Outbreak. Alright, now let's properly test it. Now, the proper way to test it is like this. That was a perfect amount of bullets right there. All right, so here's the average amount of shots and the damage rate on the screen for you. And yeah, there's no pot shot or escape maneuvers. So that is ultimately gonna conclude the submachine gun. All right, now for the next and last machine gun of sorts, the assault rifle. But before we go over it, let's look at its ammo, which is only through a magazine. Assault rifle magazine, magazine for assault rifles. This sets 5.56mm rounds. Okay, so now looking over the weapon itself, the assault rifle, a gun suited for rapid firing. It uses 5.56 caliber rounds. All right, so comparing to Outbreak 1, the floating model looks no different other than maybe more defined, but the icon definitely looks different. It's now placed at an upward angle, not a downward. That's about the only difference there. Now, of course, this is based off the Colt 727, which the only similar weapon we have seen before Outbreak 1, at least, was in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis with the M4A1 carbine. So here's a list of all of Outbreak 2's locations for the assault rifle. And depending on the difficulty you're playing, you can find it in the underbelly scenario, the end of the road scenario, or both. Now, none of these locations are fixed across all 4 difficulties, let alone 3 difficulties. There are 4 locations that are tied for being in at least 2 difficulties, so I'm just going to show the earliest one you could come across. This is in the underbelly scenario, in easy and normal mode only. It is in the subway car in the platform on the B1 level of the subway. It is on the seats in the northeast area of the carriage. Now, this whole subway car, I'm pretty sure is an asset carryover from the first Outbreak, if you just look at it. Now, here's the assault rifle in game at an extremely close-up angle, provided by Hellmaster, of course. Now, here's the assault rifle, once again, being held by all the characters. I thought it looked good in Outbreak File 1, but here it looks even better. I'm not really trying hard to scope out any possible differences between both games. The only time I really noticed was with the chemical bottles. But for all I know, I guess it's possible all of the models were readdressed a little bit for the second game. I have no idea, though. I didn't look too hard into it. I don't have time for that, really. All right, equip this bad boy and test it out. Now, you would think, since the devs went through all that trouble to give magazines and speed loader mechanisms for all the weapons, why couldn't they do the opposite for this and give it its own box of ammo along with its magazine? Probably because they thought people wouldn't want to load 30 rounds into it, but they did for the machine gun, so why? I guess because the handgun bullets are way more abundant than assault rifle ammo would ever be, so they figured it's not even try, I guess. But anyway, let's go ahead and test the assault rifle on zombies because even though it's likely more powerful than the submachine gun, individual rounds aren't gonna defeat a zombie in one shot, guaranteed. So I'll stick with zombies for this one. All right, 200 per bullet at close range. 160 per bullet at mid-range. 140 for far range. Not too much of a drop-off between the ranges there. Now, let's do a proper test. And now to show you using it properly, after he gets his attack off. There you go. So an average of 4 shots across the board here with the assault rifle per zombie. And here's your damage range. There you go. So that is ultimately gonna conclude the assault rifle, as well as all machine guns. All right, now we're really boosting up the firepower, moving into the shotguns, starting with the Shotgun E. But first, because we're switching weapon class, let's go over the rounds. Shotgun rounds, 12 gauge shotgun shells. All right, and now for the Shotgun E, an easy to handle shotgun. I guess that's what the E stands for, easy. It uses 12 gauge rounds. Okay, now, this particular shotgun wasn't in Outbreak 1. It might have been an unused weapon, of course, but it wasn't officially used. Here we get to see it, and this is based off of a popular shotgun you may recognize. It is the Remington 870. So that being said, we have seen this in Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2 in a sawed-off variant, and in part, Resident Evil 0. So here's a list of all the locations of the Shotgun E, and it appears to be exclusive to the first 3 scenarios. Now, none of these locations are fixed across all 4 difficulties. There are 2 that tie for having at least 3 difficulties, but it's not the same set of difficulties. So I'm just gonna show the earliest of the 2. So this, of course, is in the Wild Thing scenario, and it is located in the back alley, which can only be accessed if you break down one of 2 doors or unlock one of them with Alyssa on your team with her lockpicks. Now, the Shotgun E only appears here if you're in easy, normal, and hard mode, and it is on the ground in the northeast corner of the alley. Now, it's worth mentioning, if you come here in very hard mode, what's instead here is a hunting rifle, one of the upcoming weapons I'll go over. Now, here's a nice extreme close-up of the Shotgun E being wielded in-game. Being the Remington 870, of course. Love getting to see it close up like this. Now here's the Shotgun E being held by all the characters. As I say a lot, it's always a pleasure to see the Remington 870 in action again. It's one of the most recognizable shotguns in Resident Evil. All right, so let's go ahead and test it out now. All right, not bad. So shotguns are where I'm going to turn up the heat when it comes to enemy testing, of course. There may be some zombies on some maps that will withstand a single shot if you don't like aim for the face or anything, but this is just a nice weapon to turn it up a little bit. So the Shotgun E is only in a few of the scenarios, and unfortunately they're not the same scenarios as the other shotguns, so I'm not going to be able to test both shotguns in the game on the same enemy. But what really matters here is just to see how much damage it causes. So I just need to test it on a powerful enemy of sorts. I'm going to do a unique enemy for this one. I'm going to test the Shotgun E on hyenas of the Wild Things scenario. So it appears to be 600 damage at close range, and that's the only range I care to give, really, for the shotguns, because traditionally I've always done close range, and that's the most logical and effective range for the shotguns. So 600 damage, takes 2 shots to defeat hyenas with the shotgun at close range. That could go up to 3 or 4 shots, or maybe even up to 6 shots if you're at far range, which that would be a very dumb move if you use a shotgun at far range. All right, well, that's all I have to say, so that is it for the Shotgun E. All right, now for the next and last shotgun. Just shotgun. A gun which can scatter bullets over a large area. It's one of the better descriptions of this game, I'll admit. All right, so very recognizable shotgun indeed. That is the Franchi Spas 12 yet again, which we have seen many times since Survivor 1, then Code Veronica X, Survivor 2 Code Veronica, Resident Evil Dead Aim, and then of course Outbreak File 1. Which when we compare to that, the model and the icon are exactly the same. But for whatever reason, here in Outbreak 2, the model is slightly bigger. So here's a list of locations in Outbreak File 2 for the regular shotgun, and interestingly, it is exclusive to the last 2 scenarios, an exact opposite from the Shotgun E. And there are a total of 3 areas that are guaranteed to give you a shotgun in any difficulty. The first is the one and only fixed location for the Desperate Times scenario. This is on the rooftop on the 2nd floor of the police station, and it only appears here after placing all of the gemstone plates into the fountain in the main hall. It is on the ground near the dead body of the officer. Now, this exact spot only applies to easy, normal, and hard mode. It is slightly moved for very hard mode, where it's instead on the ground inside the locked fenced area of the south side of the rooftop, and you need to use the padlock key on the gate to gain access to this area. Next, you got the end of the road scenario, where the first fixed location you'll likely come across is inside the helicopter in the urban area downtown. It is on the middle seats on the west side of the helicopter. Now in easy through hard mode, it comes fully loaded with 7 shotgun rounds, while in very hard, it only comes with 5. And finally, you got the elevated highway, where in easy through hard mode, it'll be inside the back of the military truck in the southeast corner of the highway. And in very hard mode, it instead will be in the large cargo container in the southwest area of the highway. For some reason, I didn't record myself going to this spot. Now here's an extreme close-up of the regular shotgun in-game. What can I say, the Spas 12 taking up the whole width of the screen? Chef's kiss. Now here's the shotgun, once again being held by all characters in the game, and almost just as much as the Remington 870, the Spas 12 is one of the most recognizable shotguns in Resident Evil history. So let's go ahead and test it out. And just to show you guys, which I neglected to do so with other two-handed weapons, this is what moving and shooting looks like. All right, so again, I can't use the same enemy as I used for the shotgun E because this shotgun's in different scenarios with different enemies. So the enemy that I will test this shotgun against is the Hunter Mew.
David! Hey, you, hey!
All right, so even though Hunter Mews are a little bit stronger than hyenas, we still got to see that the damage was 700. 100 points more than the Shotgun E, and 100 points stronger than its Outbreak 1 counterpart. And it still averaged only 2 shots per hunter. So I like the consistency there. I usually have bad luck when it comes to shotguns. All right, well, that is gonna conclude the regular shotgun, as well as all shotguns. All right, moving into my personal favorite weapon category, the Magnum class weaponry. Starting with the Magnum Handgun, but let's look over the ammo first, which we did not see in the first game. Now we actually have ammo for the Magnum Handgun. Magnum Handgun rounds. 50 Action Express rounds. They are used for a Magnum Handgun. Okay, now an interesting fact I discovered during the editing process is that the floating models of both the Magnum Handgun rounds you see here and the 45 auto rounds are exactly the same. So the devs cut some corners and thought they could get away with it, but they are indeed 2 different ammo types, one's 45 ACP and the other is 50 Action Express. So with that, now let's go over the actual Magnum Handgun, a very huge handgun. It uses 50 AE rounds. Oh, fuck's sake. All right. So, very recognizable weapon here. This is a Desert Eagle of sorts. Specifically, it is the IMI Desert Eagle Mark 19. And again, we have seen this weapon in a few games prior. Saw it in Resident Evil 2, in parts Resident Evil 0, and Resident Evil Dead Aim. And then, of course, Outbreak File 1, which if we compare to that specifically, the floating model is the same, but the icon has been modified. In my opinion, this is a downgrade from Outbreak File 1 with the icon. So here's a list of all the locations for the Magnum Handgun, far more accessible than the preceding game, yet still contained to only one scenario, in this case Desperate Times. And even though there's way more ways to get it, especially in easier difficulties, each and every one of these locations is conditional. Now the only one that's available in all difficulty modes is in the holding cells, and it's the same exact condition as the submachine gun, just with film B instead of film D. Film B is located on the rooftop in the same area as the shotgun in all difficulty modes. Once you give film B to Ben, this will drop and you have to pick it up. And I should mention, from easy to hard mode, it is fully loaded with 7 rounds, but in very hard, it only has 3 rounds. And as you see, we got a Deagle standoff.
Oh! Go ahead.
Now here's one of the most satisfying extreme close-ups of this whole showcase, in my opinion, of the Magnum Handgun, provided by Hellmaster using Mr. Black in-game. Even he had quite the reaction to this.
Absolutely amazing.
Now here's the Magnum Handgun being held by all characters once again, and I'm glad that we get much more sufficient lighting this time, really highlighting the detail of a beautiful looking Desert Eagle. All right, let's go ahead and equip it and test it out. Oh, that's hella satisfying to reload that thing. So the Magnum Handgun does come with its own magazine as well, but you can only find it in one of the minigames, Showdown 1. And here it is, a Magnum Handgun magazine, which reloads 50 Action Express rounds. So not much of a description, but there it is for you guys. And here's the actual reload. All right, so the Magnum Handgun, being as powerful as it is, definitely need a powerful enemy to test this on. However, I think just like the shotguns, the Magnum Handgun and the Magnum Revolver aren't exclusively in any scenario together. So I just need to choose a very powerful enemy. Unfortunately, because this weapon is exclusive to this scenario, there's really only one enemy that I could reliably test this against, and that is a liquor. All right, 900 at close range. I'm glad the liquor can take it. 810 at mid-range. And 720 at far range. All right, now of course, let's defeat this liquor at close range only. Ha! Only 2 shots, of course, to defeat the liquor. This is a Magnum after all, so most enemies are probably gonna go down in no more than 2 shots. It's more fit for boss battles. The liquor's not a bad enemy to test it against, though. All right, so now let's see the escape maneuvers with the Magnum Handgun.
Sorry. Help me!
Sorry.
Are you all right?
Sorry about that.
Of course, you're wasting it at this point because, once again, there's only a fixed rate of 500 damage when you do the escape maneuvers like this. And now for the take pot shot, which will be the Magnum Handgun's ultimate headshot, following my newly established Magnum tradition of performing an explosive critical headshot with all Magnums. Here we go. Headshot. Alrighty. Well, that is ultimately gonna conclude the Magnum Handgun. All right, now for the next and last Magnum, the Magnum Revolver. Now this uses its own type of ammo, so I'll just go ahead and go over the weapon first. An M29 44 Magnum. It uses 44 Magnum rounds. All right, and now here's the ammo for it, Magnum Revolver rounds. 44 Magnum rounds that are used for a Magnum Revolver, in this case, the Magnum Revolver. And here's what's different compared to Outbreak 1, now it comes with its own speed loader as well. The Magnum Revolver speed loader, which quickly reloads 44 Magnum rounds into the revolver. No shit. All right, now we have only seen this once before, and that was of course Outbreak File 1. And the model looks exactly the same, just shrunk within the bubble, but the icon looks slightly different. It's more level than its Outbreak 1 counterpart. And as it basically reveals in its description, the Magnum Revolver is based on the Smith & Wesson Model 29, a classic. Here's all the locations for the Magnum Revolver in Outbreak File 2, a bit more than File 1, but still not too abundant for a Magnum Revolver. Now, none of these are seen in all 4 difficulties. There are 2 locations that are seen in 3 difficulties, so let's go over those. Both are in the end of the road scenario, the first of which is in the floodgate control room in the water treatment plant. It is on the shelves behind the movable crate on the west side of the room. Now, just to note, in normal and hard mode, there's another crate that's in front of this crate, and if you move it before retrieving this item, you won't be able to get it because it'll block the shelves it's on. This comes with full ammo in easy mode, only 5 rounds in normal, and 4 rounds in hard. And it is not available whatsoever in very hard mode. The other one is in the construction site inside the bucket of the digger on the east side of the area. And in any difficulty it's available, it only comes loaded with 4 rounds. Now, the angle that we used in this scenario for the 2-handed weapons doesn't quite work for the 1-handed weapons, so we use this area for the Magnum Revolver's extreme close-up, and I have to say, I think we scored pretty good here. Oh man, this is one of my favorite looking weapons. It always has been. Now here's the Magnum Revolver being held by all of the characters once again, and I don't know what it is about revolvers, man, but they've always looked so awesome to me. I wonder if it's because it's highly associated with the Wild West, and me being on the west side of the United States of America, maybe my genes are just deep-rooted in that kind of stuff. I am not saying whatsoever I'm some sort of cowboy. Absolutely not. I'm just saying I've always loved the aesthetic appeal of a revolver. All right, now let's give this a look-see, Dirty Harry style.
Hey, you.
All right, and it's worth noting, if you try to move and shoot with a Magnum, they stop cold as soon as you fire it, which I find dumb. If he could shoot it one-handed, then surely he can continue moving while doing it. All right, well, again, because this isn't in the same scenario as the Magnum Handgun, I can't use a liquor for this one. Instead, this weapon in this scenario, let's test this on the Tyrant. So it took me 7 shots from the Magnum Revolver to defeat the Tyrant. Definitely is a strong enemy, having a health pool of 9,000. So I didn't record ranges for this clip, but I know for a fact what the range values are based on the previous showcase. So close range is 1,000, mid range is 900, and far range is 800. And as for this test, it took 7 shots. 2 of those were critical. If there were no criticals, I would have taken 9 shots. But yeah, 1,000 per shot at close range. A lot of enemies are gonna go down at a flat rate, depending on their health pool. You can pretty much figure it out from there. All right, now let's go ahead and see the escape maneuvers.
Damn it.
Sorry.
God damn it.
Dog should be dead. And now for the ultimate headshot. And I'm gonna throw back with this one to my original showcase. I'm doing it against Zombie Yoko again in the same exact spot. Oh! Headshot! This time I gave Alyssa the honors, in the dress that's reminiscent of Alice from the first live-action Resident Evil film. All right, now one more thing I want to show before I conclude this weapon. I remember in Outbreak File 1, someone claimed that the damage is quadrupled when doing a pot shot with Kevin. So I decided to test that out because I wasn't able to in Outbreak 1 since there was no strong enough enemies. But in this one, there definitely is. Well, turns out that is wrong. So someone needs to go back into that wiki article and correct that, because that is misinformation. I'm glad I proved it here. All right, that is ultimately gonna conclude the Magnum Revolver, as well as all Magnums.